Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott. You're in the Prog Corner, and today we're going to be ranking the top 25 instrumental prog albums of all time. I've got them right here in my hand, kids. We're only going to be looking at those albums which are all instrumental, so yeah, Hot Rats from Frank Zappa's not in because it's got the Willie the Pimp song on it. Omadon from Mike Oldfield, I'm eliminating that because it's got that horse song at the end. Narrations, we're going to allow that. Vocalizations like the oohs and the ahs and that kind of stuff, we're going to allow that. But here we go. We're going to do the honorable mentions at the tail end today. So save your griping until then. At number 25, it's Earthland from Ozric Tentacles from 1990. Yeah, this is their 7th overall album, but kind of only their 2nd real album because the first 5 were only available on cassette. Band was formed in 1980 by Ed Wynn in Somerset in the UK. And God bless the Ozric Tentacles, man, because during the terrible 80s, these were guys, these cats were playing festivals in the UK, and, you know, hundreds of thousands of people were digging what they were doing. They've got 21 albums out. They dropped their latest one, Space for Earth, in 2020. Edwin's got a couple solo albums that he just dropped recently. Great stuff. Check them out. Number 24, it's Henry Cow with Western Culture from 1979, their 4th and final album. This album had its origin story in a dispute within the band where some of the band wanted to do vocals, some other members of the band just wanted to do an instrumental album, so they ended up doing this one as an instrumental album, and then they dropped Hopes and Fears under the nameplate The Art Bearers later on that year. This is Tim Hodgkinson, Lindsey Cooper, Fred Frith, and Chris Cutler. Just amazing. If you like Rio, avant-garde stuff, you can't go wrong with Henry Cow. They're a mess. They're nuts. I love them. And number 23, we're going to the Netherlands. Finch, The Glory of the Inner Forest from 1975. This is their debut album. They put out 3. I like all 3. The following year, Beyond Expression came out, and then in 1977, their final album, Galleons of Passion. They had a different keyboard player for that one, so I do prefer the first 2. Joop van Nimwegen on guitar, Clem Dietermeyer on keyboard. Like I said, he wasn't on the 3rd album, but he was on the first 2. In the rhythm section's Peter Vink on bass, and a dude named Beer Klaus on drums. If your drummer's name is Beer, I'm probably going to like your band. At number 22, it's Coda Bell, Concerto for Piano and Electric Ensemble. Don't let the highfalutin, highbrow names scare you off. Even though these guys, you know, they do their best to try to combine classical and rock elements. They are a prog rock band led by a Venezuelan guy who moved to Madrid by the name of Carlos Plaza. Just phenomenal. I like a lot of these guys' albums, but I think this is the best thing they ever did from 2012. Here we go at number 21. We're going to Italy and 1000 Autumni by Skay. This did make my top 25 Italian prog albums of all time. This is Paolo Botta, the mastermind behind Skay. He was in a band called Eugen, which is a real avant-garde kind of thing. He's got members of the Greek band Cicada helping him flesh this thing out. And the music here is kind of a cross between symphonic and super highbrow avant-garde stuff. He did drop a 2nd album a couple years ago called Insolubility. That's really, really good too. Check it out at number 20. We're going to France and Shylock and their debut album, Geolorges from 1977. I just love this dark masterpiece. It's 3 songs, highlighted by a sidelong epic on side 2. Very dark, very King Crimson-y. I just love it. They've got a 2nd album called Ile de Fever that dropped in 78. That's almost as good, but it's only 2 albums for Shylock, and they were gone. Love that band, just amazing. At number 19, the world travel continues. This time we're going to Finland with Hedal Sherpa at number 19, their debut album that dropped in 2013. Yeah, it's their only album. It's been 10 years since this thing dropped, and I've been waiting for a new one. It's kind of space rocky, like, you know, maybe like Ozric's, but a little bit of a Gusa thrown in there. I'm actually maybe hearing some old, like, Hydria Space Folk, or even way back Kingston Wall. These guys definitely know their history. They're a basic constructed band where they got bass, guitar, drums, keyboards, but they augment that with some flute, some cello, some trumpet. It's just awesome. At number 18, yeah, we're still traveling the world, boys and girls. I got like some kind of a frog in my throat. If I knew how to edit, I'd edit all that stuff out, but you guys don't mind. At number 18, we're going to South America, and Annabella's by Boo Boo that dropped in 1978. This Argentinian band definitely took their cues from King Crimson, no doubt about it. Maybe a little bit of Mahavishnu Orchestra in there too. It's dark, it's heavy, it's amazing. There's some flute and some sax and some violin to go along with the more traditional rock instruments. This was their only album until like 2018 when Daniel Andreoli reformed the band with a bunch of new members and dropped the incredible El Eco de Sol. Real good album, but man, Annabella's just incredible. At number 17, let's go to Quebec and Pan G and their one and only album Hymnomande from 1995. I love this thing. I bought it because of the album cover. I seen that CD cover and I had to have it. I don't think it's available on vinyl, but whatever. Again, it's a traditional rock band augmented by some other instrumentations like clarinet and violin. Some people have detected a krautrock element to their music and they cite Can as perhaps an influence. I'm hearing way more Shylock. I'm hearing way more King Crimson. But this is their only album. There's only 3 songs on it, and all 3 are great. At number 16, let's go to Hungary and Solaris with Mars Belly Chronikak. The Mars Chronicles. Obviously, this is following the Ray Bradbury story. This album dropped in 1984. This was the band's very first album. And Hungary was, 84 was maybe a little bit late for the golden era of Prague. But Eastern Europe was maybe a little bit late to the game. And they had a huge band called Omega that was selling hundreds of thousands of copies and filling seats. So Solaris had a little bit of that tailwind going for them. They were formed in 1980 in Budapest. They're still together and they only have 5 albums out. There's 2 Nostradamus albums. There's 2 Mars Chronicles albums, and then their second album was something called Solaris 1990. All 5 are great, but this first one, the Mars Chronicles, just amazing. Led by Attila Kolar, who's still in the band, playing flute, killing people left and right, just breaking legs, amazing stuff. At number 15, it's Luciano Bassi and Vaci. Oh, Luciano Basso, rather. Man, I love this album. This is all instrumental. It sounds like ELP, maybe with a little bit of violin and cello in there. Very, very cool stuff. But after this album, Luciano went way more classical with his music. He forgot about the rock part, and I forgot about him at number 14. I almost left this off my list. What the heck was I thinking? It's Mahavishnu Orchestra and Birds of Fire from 1973. I most certainly could have gone with the debut, The Intermounting Flame from 1971, but Birds of Fire to me is just a little bit better. This is the last album with that classic Mahavishnu Orchestra lineup that conquered the world and influenced bands around the world. You got John McLaughlin on guitar, Rick Lard on bass, the great Billy Cobham on drums, and I almost put Billy Cobham's debut album Spectrum on this list because it's amazing. You got Jan Hammer and you've got the great Jerry Goodman on violins and whatnot. Just incredible, man. I love Mahavishnu Orchestra, especially those first 2. At number 13, we're going to Japan and Kenzo with the Yumo no Okai, and its translation means Dream Hill. This was their 5th album, and at this point, this is where Yoshihisa Shimizu and his band decided to go all in on the fusion. Prior to that, they were more like a straight prog band, but here you definitely hear the fusion influences, but don't let that scare you off, man. This guy worships at the altar of Steve Hackett, so you're going to be just fine listening to this music. I like every Kenzo album. They're all great, but Yume no Oka is definitely my favorite. Fantastic band. At number 12, we're going back to Italy with Goblin. I could have gone a lot of different ways with Goblin. I could have gone with Roller. I could have gone with Suspira, but I ended up going with their debut album, Profundo Rosa from 1975. Yeah, this was the first collaboration between Goblin and Dario Argento, and they went on to do so many albums together, but this is the one that I really, really like. Originally, Dario had enlisted a guy named Giorgio Gaslini to do the music. He got fired halfway through, and I guess dude was trying to get Pink Floyd, but they weren't interested, so he ended up with Goblin, who finished out the record. And most of the music on this is, Goblin's music, but I guess there's a little bit of, Gaslini stuff in there, but just incredible. I love it. And the title track even hit #1 in Italy at number 11. It's the Enid and In the Region of the Summer Stars from 1976, their debut album. This is the band led by Robert John Gottfried, who had done orchestrations and arrangements for Barclay James Harvest on their first couple albums. He's joined by Francis Licorice, what a great name for a guitar player, drummer Dave Story, and they had a singer, but he died, so their first 4 albums were all instrumental. I'm going with their debut, but I could have gone with Airy Fairy Nonsense. I could have gone with Touch Me. They're just a great band. I love them. At number 10, hey, we're in the top 10 now, and we're going back to Germany. We haven't been to Germany. Hey, we're going to Germany with Schick, Furs, and Frohling, and their debut album, Symphonic Pictures from 1976. There was a second album called Sunburst in 77, and then Schick left the band, and they did Amerland in 1978. All 3 are really, really strong, but the debut is just dynamite. There's a 16.5-minute long epic called Pictures. This was on Brain Records. It's got Edward Schick, Gerd Furs, and Heinz Frohling. Just amazing. These guys could have been huge worldwide, but they weren't. We're staying in Germany for number 9. How about Tangerine Dream and Phaedra? Yeah, their 5th album from 1974, recorded at the Manor in 1973 in December. This was their first album for Virgin, even though it was their 5th overall, and their first album using that famous sequencer. Edgar Frost produced this and obviously played on it, along with Christopher Frank and Peter Baumann. The album hit number 15 in the UK, just barely dented the US market. I guess it landed like 196 in the US, but whatever, man. At number 8, let's go to Sweden and Änglagard. I could have gone with their latest album, Vilgens Öga. Their first album's disqualified because there's some vocals. So I'm going with the second album, Epilogue from 1994. What a masterpiece this is. Änglagard is probably the band most responsible for bringing prog rock back from the dead way back in the 90s. You have Jonas Endegard on guitar, Tord Lindman on guitar, Johan Hogberg on bass, Thomas Johnson on keyboards, and Anna Holmgren on flute to go along with the great drumming of Matthias Olsson. Everybody knows that guy. Everybody loves that guy. At number 7, it's Banco. Formerly known as Banco del Moturo Soccorso. They had changed their name when they dropped an English-speaking album, and then they went ahead and did this instrumental album, which is weird because you've got the world's greatest vocalist in Francesco Di Giacomo, and you don't even want him singing it. Well, the album's called Di Terra, and I guess that's the name of a poem he wrote. All the songs are, basically titles of poems that he wrote. So the spirit of Giacomo is in the album, but these melodies are just great. The Nocenzi brothers wrote some amazing material here. They've got a studio filled with the orchestral instruments. They use a symphony orchestra on this thing, and it works to good effect. Really cool. At number 6, it's Griffin and Red Queen to Griffin 3. Yeah, this was their 3rd album of medieval Renaissance craziness. Yeah, you got crumb horns and flugelhorns and recorders and bassoons and all these weird instruments, but the songwriting's fantastic. So good that after this album, they ended up getting on tour with Yes. This dropped in 1974. Fantastic record, really cool. If you like kind of medieval instrumentation with some rock stuff thrown in there, This is a great album, and there's only 4 tracks on here, and all 4 are good. And now we're in the top 5, and these are just amazing albums. At number 5, how about Dixie Dregg's second album, What If, from 1978? Yeah, man, I remember walking into Peaches record store in Fort Lauderdale, and they had this playing on in-store play. I thought it was like a new Kansas album or something. Just love it. Like I said, this is their second album. It was on Capricorn. It's produced by Ken Scott. Yeah, it's got a little bit of Kansas, but there's, a lot of different things going on here beyond just prog. You've got the Americana stuff, and there's a little bit of bluegrass stuff, whatever. Steve Morse on guitar. Mark Parrish on keyboards, Alan Sloan plays the violin, Andy West on bass, and the great Rod Morgenstein on drums. What an incredible band. What an amazing album. Easily my favorite Dixie Dregs album, and it's not even close. At number 4, let's go back to Scandinavia. Let's go to Sweden with Bo Hansen and music inspired by Lord of the Rings. This album originally came out in Sweden in December of 1970. Finally got a worldwide international distribution deal and was released worldwide September 1972, where it met with the limited success worldwide. Bo put out 4 incredible instrumental prog albums. Just ridiculous. It's been reissued a bunch of times. It was reissued in 1977 with a Rodney Matthews cover, which looks really cool. But yeah, man, I love Bo Hansen. Even Jimi Hendrix loved Bo Hansen. He used to play a Bo Hansen song in concert. Check it out. At number 3, it's the man that made Richard Branson a millionaire. Yeah, it's Mike Oldfield. And even though I got Hergest Ridge over my shoulder there, I'm going with Tubular Bells. Like I said, Oma Dawn has been eliminated from consideration. Incantations came close. Amarok. I love Mike Oldfield, but it all started with Tubular Bells. And yeah, there is some speaking on here, so it's not, I guess, 100% instrumental. But, come on, man. Dude was 19 years old when he recorded this. Album hit number 1 in the UK, number 3 in the US, and it's still amazing. At number 2, it's the Caped Crusader. Yeah, Rick Wakeman, The 6 Wives of Henry VIII from 1973. Technically his first solo album, although he did do an album a couple years previous to that, but it didn't even have his name on it. So this really is the first Rick Wakeman solo album. And I guess when he delivered the goods to A&M, they were wondering, hey, where are the vocals at, Rick? I can't wait to hear it when it's done. And he had to inform them that, yeah, it is done, and this is that, and you're going to love it. It hit number 7 in the UK, hit number 30 in the US, but I think that number 7 in the UK was, primarily because he was going to go on the gray whistle test, the old gray whistle test, and at the same time, I guess the other BBC had something about Andy Warhol on, and everybody's all excited about that, and they went home from work and wanted to hear about Andy Warhol. Well, that got canceled or, got censored or whatever, so the whole country tuned in to watch Rick Wakeman. I almost went with the Red Planet here because his latest instrumental album from 2020 was just incredible, but 6 Wives of Henry VIII, come on, it's got Bill Bruford on it, it's got Alan White on it, it's got Chris Squire on it, Steve Howe. I had to go with 6 Wives. And in the number 1 position for the greatest instrumental prog rock album of all time, you know what it is for you keeping score and wondering where it is. It's right there. It's Camel. It's the Snow Goose. It's their 3rd album. Came out in 1975. And the only single complaint I ever had about Camel was the vocals. They're not great. No one in the band had a great voice. They kind of spread it around a little bit, tried to, see if anybody could do anything with it. But, later on he would hire people, and it was just a mess. So why not just forget about the vocals, just go with an all-instrumental album based on the Paul Gallico novel, and it's a masterpiece of epic proportions. Andrew Latimer, Peter Bardens, Doug Ferguson, and Andy Ward, you guys came up with an absolute masterpiece, and it is my favorite instrumental prog album of all time. And yeah, boys and girls, let me talk to you about some honorable mentions, some ones that I thought about. I actually started with like 200 albums here. Pink Floyd, The Endless River, Riverside, Eye of the Soundscape, Liquid Tension Experiment, 1 or 2 to be honest with you, The Endless Sporadic, either one of their albums. Guapo Five Sons. I mentioned Agusa. How about Anvarld? Almost made the list. Ars Nova, the great ELP-esque trio from Japan with Transi, Pekka Bajola, his first two albums, but maybe Be a Magpie would probably be good on this list. Atlas with Blavardeg. PFM put out an instrumental album called Stadi di Imaginacion. De Gem Correct, any of their albums could be there. Host and Satan, any of their Four Seasons. Fren from Poland's got two great instrumental albums. Isobar, great American instrumental band from San Diego. Universe Zero, Used, almost made the list. That was probably number 26. I think that was the last one I pulled off. And then there's some post-rock bands like Godspeed You Black Emperor with, Lift Your Skinny Fists, or Explosions in the Sky. The Earth is Not a Cold, Dead Place. I gave all those consideration, but at the end of the day, that's my 25. Later on this week, I'm going to be doing an album review probably tomorrow for the brand new Comedy of Errors album. It's just incredible. It's fantastic. Anyway, I love you guys. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up the best of 2023 so far. That should be fun. Also looking to do a review for the Chronicles of Father Robin. So that should be awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking around. This was a long one. I apologize. I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet. And God save the king. Save him. And Rick Wakeman too.